Okay, here we are again. This is Devin again, and we are now on the bonus disc for Casualties. Maybe it can be called Casualties of Cooler. How's that? Well, what do we talk about with this? Well, this is the second half of the story. Although it doesn't have any literal sort of story to this record. It's more of a conglomeration of the tracks that I liked but didn't feel made it any better for the main disc. I often hear from management and labels how bands have problems providing additional material, and I don't relate. I have more material than time, unfortunately. So some of it, like this record, ends up getting relegated to bonus discs or whatever, and there it is. This song here, Ghost Wives, was one of the ones that I had written in the middle of the Casualties record. And Shay put her vocals on, and I really like the atmosphere of it. I think it's a really cool feeling. But again, just sort of crowbarring these songs into a record just doesn't make much sense to me. I think that the most important thing for me with any record is the theme. And so often, good songs get left behind. And songs that maybe aren't as important unto themselves get added to records strictly because they contribute to the theme. And this stuff on the Casualties 2, if you want to call it that way, I mean, I mixed all this stuff myself and did it quickly. I think the actual Casualties disc took upwards of 4 to 5 months of mixing off and on, but within that time frame, and this second disc, it took me 2 days to mix this, so I didn't really spend too much time second guessing this stuff. But again, a lot of it had been defined by the mix of the first record, so I went into it more prepared than if it was just cold. And just a bit of a story now as to where I'm at. It is Monday night, April, I don't know what it is, 20-something. But I leave for Los Angeles tomorrow to start tracking the Ziltoid 2 record. And it's inhuman amounts of work right now, I gotta tell you. It's late at night, and I'm doing all the pledge stuff and being a family man and all of this Casualties stuff, and writing the Ziltoid records and DTP records and the puppet show and the comic book and the autobiography and the live show and the live show for Casualties and making sure the lawn is mowed and all these things. And I guess I put myself in these situations because it allows me, with this level of productivity that I find myself doing, it allows me to keep making music, and I get to do whatever I want, and that is worth it for me, at least at this point in my life. I get to do records like Casualties, and I got an email from a buddy of mine in a band today, and he was saying, I didn't know what to think about Casualties. I put it on, and it's just so alien to me, this style of music, that I didn't know if I liked it or not. And then he finished the mail by saying, but I let it gestate for a while, and I realized that I do like it. And in fact, I keep coming back to it because it is unequivocally what it is. And I gotta tell you, just the pace that my career moves at, however unfortunate that workload tends to get, like right now, it's too much. But the upswing of that is I get to do this I'm not stuck to making corporate music. I get to do this. Dubious as it may be. This song is essentially Mystery Train by Elvis. I learned this pattern that's a sort of Chet Atkins finger picking pattern, and I'm trying to get better at finger picking, but it's not my forte. But I learned this pattern from some online tutorial thing. I forget which is some Chet Atkins tutorial, and I learned this pattern. And then all of a sudden I started thinking of Mystery Train, that Elvis song, which I like so much, and this song came out. I tend to focus on the theme of trains a lot, and this was another one because of the train beat. So I ended up calling it Drained instead, because then it still could sound like I was saying train, but I'm not. I'm saying drained. So there. I like this song. Regardless of whether or not it is just an Elvis track, I like the dichotomy again of typical sort of 50s sounding chords mixed with that sort of whispered, dark, creepy vocal approach. Lyrically, I think as well, going back to what I was saying in the beginning of this commentary here, is a record isn't a record for me unless it says something in its entirety. And what separates the main disc of Casualties with this, the second disc, is this disc doesn't have an agenda. It's not saying anything. It's a conglomeration of excess material that I think in the order that it goes creates an atmosphere, perhaps, but in terms of an emotional connection to it, it's not a complete statement for me. It's a collection of ideas. And again, that's why sometimes these B-side records of mine end up receiving some potentially better songs than the main disc gets. And again, just to reiterate, I don't choose the songs for the main disc based on the quality of the songs entirely. That gets trumped by whether or not they contribute to the theme. So, a lot of this stuff on Casualties 2, let's call it Casualties 2, I really do like, but it just didn't fit for one reason or another. And what I also ended up doing is Ghost 2, which was the second disc from the Ghost record, which at the time the label was adamant that I didn't put out. They thought, we can save that record and make more money with it down the line. And I remember really digging my heels in at that point, thinking, well, it's not a record. And a lot of the people involved with it at that point were saying, no, we really like it. And some people saying, well, we like it more than Ghost. I'm saying, well, be that as it may, it's not a record. It's a collection of songs that, to me, doesn't make a strong enough statement. So, as it turned out, I bent to them at that point, and we didn't put out Ghost 2 as the bonus disc for Ghost. Because, again, they wanted to put it out as its own release. And then as time's gone on, the more I listen to Ghost 2, the more I'm like, well, now I don't feel it at all. So I split it up, and I actually used a bunch of the Ghost 2 material for Casualties 2. Because really, fuck it. It doesn't matter. It's just music. It's a bunch of excess songs that I would like to get out of my system, so they needed to find a home. This song, Dig for Gold, I wrote this in Arizona on one of the tours. I don't even remember what the tour was anymore. I think we were out with Catatonia and Stolen Babies. And I wrote this basic idea of the chord changes, and it became a vibe more so than a song. But lyrically, the words that made sense rhythmically ultimately didn't say enough to me to contribute to the full Casualties theme again. So when it came time to this, I put it on here, and I manipulated the beginning here and added some sounds and tried to make it more of an ambient thing. And in lieu of there being a solid theme lyrically for this record, I wanted to find a common thread for the music of it, and that became the ambient and sort of soundscape vibe. So I think that's what Casualties 2 has going for it, is a bunch of good songs and that sort of floating dark ambience, more so than the actual Casualties disc. Now, I think, Chase sings on this one as well. She doesn't sing on a lot of this one. There was a bunch of material that we had in excess that I felt was... that I thought was really good. But a bunch of it just didn't work out or isn't finished yet. You know, we did another version of Radial Highway together because Shay really liked that song and wanted to sing on it. But it just didn't work out, I don't think, yet. I'll still work it. And who knows where it will end up. I mean, I have so much music kicking around, it's obscene. Like the Z2 record that, again, we start recording day after tomorrow. It's just ridiculous amounts of music that I wrote, like 60 songs or something. And we ended up choosing 20. And again, it's, I'm listening to the record there. And the Ziltoid record is a really typical sort of Ziltoid thing, and I'm very proud of that one. But the DTP one is not perhaps the most appropriate follow-up to Epicloud. But, in terms of the theme of Ziltoid, the songs that made it onto the DTP one are the ones that contribute to the theme, and I think somewhere down the line we'll probably do an EP. And the point being is I've just got so much music that I don't worry too much about things getting thrown to the wayside. And the stuff that does make it onto these auxiliary discs, like Casualties 2, are ones that I think are creatively interesting, or production's interesting, or like this here. Yeah, I like that. Really dark. Again, talking to my friend there that said that Casualties was a sound that he wasn't sure that he related to. I mean, I think a lot of what ends up happening in my career is based on needing to keep it afloat. Like I always write music, and if I need to write DTP style music or Ziltoid type music, those are things that I can generally conjure up without too much effort. But ultimately, my musical nature is best represented by these ones that sort of come out and get less attention, like Casualties or Ghost or Key or The Hummer. Those sorts of records are a lot more personal to me. They're not ones that I've given away. They're ones that are done strictly for myself, I think. And these secondary discs, I mean, I'm sitting here trying to think things to talk about, and there's really not much to talk about with this stuff. I mean, it's more music in an immense glut of music that I write. What's this song called? Deadeye? What could we talk about with Deadeye? I found a new filter in Pro Tools that I used. It was like a rhythmic step filter that worked in terms of the tempo, and I could automate it and switch it over. So I would track these ambient guitars like I'd done for the remainder of, or for the majority of the Casualties record, then ran it through that filter, and that inspired this piece, I guess. I like the swing, I like anything with that sort of backbeat. But this song sort of earned its keep for me in the next verse, because there's this little counter melody that happens that I think made it more than just like a silly sort of, you know, country western type guitar lick. I've got to want to, oh, I won't do what I told you. I've got to want to, oh, I won't do what I told you I do. I've got to want to, oh, I won't do what I told you. See, that's cool to me. See, a lot of these songs as well are glorified demos. On the actual Casualties record, I was using tube amps, and I was very meticulous about those sorts of recordings. And these ones are mixed demos, so I would use plugins or Axe Effects or whatever to get these sort of sounds, and then just revisit the demos when it came time to put this together and just mix it, you know, put some bus compression on it, and there it goes. And then when you stand back from it, I mean, I'm listening to it now, and I'm like, yeah, it sounds good. It's not a compromise in a lot of ways. I mean, I had Troy master it as well, which definitely helped. But you know, you can spend all the time in the world mixing and then throw something together like this, and sometimes you overthink things to the point where you're spinning your wheels. The drums on this Casualties 2 record as well are actually just Tune Track superior drummer. You know, I had Morgan do a bunch of the material, of course, and all the main disc, but the guy's busy, and it's such an old story for me, is I write way more music than I can realistically hope that the people in my life have time, patience, and memory in order to learn. Like, you know, we again with Z2 that we leave for tomorrow, like Ryan's turned himself inside out trying to learn this stuff, and it sucks. I mean, I really don't want to blow people's mind in terms of just cramming so much information into their heads, and for me it's a little easier because I wrote the stuff, so I've got an intuitive connection to it that makes it a lot less stressful for me to recall. But other people, man, they're writing out charts and counting things out, and honestly it makes me feel bad. But these are people that also want to be involved with the music, so I think that's kind of how it goes, you know. I change my mind often, and I write a lot, so if you want to be involved, it's not going to be easy, I guess. But that's not to say that I'm like maniacal about it or a dictator about it. I definitely value the human equation of it all, and how much of that needs to be handled with kid gloves, specifically with different personalities and different learning types. I've come to really appreciate that and depend on people. So I sympathize, but again, it's not really going to change. So I sort of sound so dour here, guys. I'm just beat right now. Holy crap. Not even beat. I mean, I don't feel like I'm worn out completely. I'm just, you know, it's late. I don't like working at night. My best times are from 5 a.m. till about 3 in the afternoon. So this next song was one of the songs from Ghost 2, a song called Drench. This. Peavy sent me a fretless bass, and I wrote this lick on it. And my love for delays and reverbs are well documented. And I thought I'd give it a shot on bass, and came up with this little riff, and it just sounded so bleak and dreary and late afternoon on a dark gray day, driving, and it's pissing rain, like. And so I just jammed this lick for a while and then repeated it, and then I really liked the idea of loops, but not perhaps in the sort of sense of how someone would typically use a looping device, but more how, okay, for this, for example, is a good example of how riffs evolve for me. So there's the bass riff, and then it just rolls around in your head. And then after a while you find that there's things that have adhered itself to the riff, like that melody there, right? Cool in the morning, and I wanna fall in line. And then over top of that, I hear ding, 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 and then it just builds. And so essentially, Drench, if you wanted to look at it as more than just an exercise in trying to establish an atmosphere, which I think it does actually quite well, it's a good way to view how ideas form for me. It's one riff that by the end of it is a lot of things happening and a real wall of sound. This was recorded again for the Ghost sessions, and in the back, one of the things that ended up going on over top of this riff was Dave Young and Mike St. John. Mike was on drums and Dave was on keyboards. Ended up taking a bunch of passes, jamming to it with the click, and I faded some of their performances in as well. And I think that's the thing I find about my connection to music is it's very serious. It's unfortunately a lot of my identity, as sad as that may be. It's let's be frank here. It's a huge part of me, and so I obsess about it. But I don't obsess about it because I'm completely a control freak or a perfectionist, but more just because it bugs me. And that's the thing about music that I find so perplexing, is I do all this stuff because I get an idea and I have to keep working it, because until it's right, it just bugs the shit out of me, and I just spend nights and days and weeks and months and sometimes years obsessing about it because it's not right. Not because I really want to do it, it's just compulsion to get it to the place where it feels like the emotion is being put across that I want to represent. So it's like this state of perpetual irritation. Maybe that's why I like bass so much, because it's a way for me to participate in music and frequencies and vibrations and people and experiences without having my instrument be a voice that leads it. Because given that voice, it leads to vision. And I'm very thankful that I have vision, because it has served me well enough to continue doing it. But that same vision is the thing that makes my sleep so erratic, and my personality tends to be really hung up on those things. When I find myself in the role of a bassist, I find it's very very good for my mind, because it takes away that obsession, that vision. And I mean, I've done it for so many years now. 25 years I've had these relentless, all-consuming visions. And they manifest in different ways now. There's puppets and little things. Even if I'm building a piece of furniture or something, it's an obsession for me. That seems to be how I'm wired, is to obsess about them. But with bass, not so much. With bass, I want to help people. I want to support people, and to have that taken away from me, that vision sometimes is of great relief. This next song is called Mend. Now, I was on the internet one night, late, looking up bass players, and I came across a video of a guy named Jeff Schmidt doing a bass solo on fretless, with lots of echo, and just really great bass player. So I sent him a mail, because I guess there was a contact on the YouTube, and I said, hey, I just wanted to drop a line and say I think you're a great bass player, and thanks for doing what you do. And he sent me a mail back and said, hey, I saw your email address, and if this is Devin, I know of your music, and I've been listening to you for a while, and I sort of found out that he knew of what I did. So I said, hey, I love your style. I'm really into bass, and I'm putting together a bunch of songs. I don't know if it'll get used, but if you're into it, maybe you wouldn't mind coming up with a couple of riffs I could jam on. So this piece here was actually Jeff's bit. He wrote the bass part and just sent it to me, and I cut it up and arranged it in a way that seemed conducive to the vibe continuing, and added keyboards and ambience to it. But that's what this is. This is a guy named Jeff Schmidt. You should look him up online. The guy's just a brilliant bassist, and I've met him once, and I've talked to him twice, and another one of those sort of ships that pass in the night kind of relationships. But I feel very fortunate that he was involved with this, not only because I think he's great, but just because I love bass. It's just such a great instrument. Sorry, I just farted. So, yeah. This was also recorded during the Ghost sessions. This wasn't part of Casualties. This was supposed to be originally on Ghost 2. One day I'll release Ghost 2. I mean, I've got art for it and everything, but the problem with it is I'm never going to revisit it in a way that makes it any better than what it was. And from the beginning, it was never meant to be a record. It was meant to be like Casualties 2 or Epiclouder. It was supposed to be the companion disc to Ghost. But I guess because the companion disc to Ghost at the time was Deconstruction, it just seemed like it was too much of a glut of material for people. But long story long, I will release it one day, but just don't expect too much from it, because by the time it comes out, you will have probably heard everything on it. So this was another Ghost 2 bit, this Mend. Now the next song is called Where You've Been, and I wrote it on an acoustic bass. I was sitting around, and contrary to my last statement there about the bass not leading the vision, I guess in this circumstance it did. So I was just plunking away. Jean, bass player from Key, good friend of mine, ended up getting me a K bass. It's like this 1950s acoustic electric bass, and it's got a neck on it like a baseball bat, and it's a lot of fun to play. It's flat wounds and a really cool instrument. So I just picked it up and started playing some chords, and then this melody came out, and I wrote this next song, Where You've Been. This is a really recent song. This is like the last one I wrote for the whole Casualties project. Yeah, I like this song. Vocals too. I actually don't mind the vocals in this. It was a good sound. One of those songs that fell together, I think. Reminds me of Exile from the first, or not the first, but Watermark from Enya. There's a song that affected me deeply as a teen. It's funny how all those songs just keep coming back in one form or another, whether or not it's just the atmosphere or vibe or something about it. I think as well, what was really important to me about Casualties is Epic Cloud, the record I had done prior to this, was just so... it had a point I was trying to make, and that point required it to be just over the top in terms of optimism and positivity. And I remember doing interviews for Epic Cloud and people saying, well, you must have been in a really positive frame of mind while you were making this album. And I was always put in a position of saying, well, no, it was no different than any other time. I was up, I was down, I had good days, I had bad days. It's writing, it's over the course of a year. You can't be expected to be one thing. But I really made an effort on Epic Cloud to maintain that for the sake of that theme. I was trying to make a statement about being positive in the face of sort of relentless negativity, and that required, even through the difficult periods of that recording process, to be positive. But Casualties is not, There's Cat again. Casualties is not a positive record or a negative record. It's just a direct representation of where I'm at. I mean, I think if somebody was just to say, well, if you didn't have to think about money anymore, if you had no obligations financially, and you didn't have to pound day in and day out music and puppets and interviews and photos and the things that frankly I enjoy, of course. I mean, it's a lot, but I do enjoy it. But if I didn't have to do that, if I didn't have to think that, what would I end up writing? And it would be a lot like this. It would be a lot like Casualties. And I think maybe that ultimately is the lesson that I learned from this, and maybe that's why I'm so thankful for this experience, is amidst the chaos of my career and life, I was able to eke out this record that was honestly in line with the person that I've become at the age of 42, rather than the caricature of myself that I enjoy making a lot of times. And it's a very rare thing, I think, for somebody who's been doing this as long as I have, to find a way to be able to represent that at this point. Next song is Gone Is Gone. Now, as I'd said on the first commentary, this song I mean, I'm kind of on the fence now that I've been listening to the other record without it for so long. But this song was originally supposed to be on the first record. But it is really, really dark, and it is really negative. And I think there was one night when I was listening through to Casualties Disc 1, and then Gone Is Gone came on, and I remember thinking, no, this isn't right. This is too much. It's 2 degrees too much, but it's still too much. There it is, Mystery Train again. Elvis, Scotty Moore, is it? So, as opposed to making it onto disc 1, unless you've got the USB stick that came with the Pludge drive, where I did the rearrangement that you can slide into your playlist there. But if you don't have that, this is where it sits. And to clarify, what I'm trying to say here is this song, Gone Is Gone, didn't make it onto the first disc because of the limitations time-wise that I have with a standard CD. So of all the songs on there, the one that could go and cause the least amount of damage to that disc would have been this song, because, like I say, it's verging on too negative for me and too loud at the end. But I really do like the song. I really like that pattern on guitar. I really like the sort of, it sounds like you're on a porch in the middle of a monsoon and just haunted things are happening while you're playing music, you know? I like that. I don't know why I find comfort in that. I think there's something to do with the fact that I am comfortable with shadows and secrets. That was my favorite solo. Yeah. That could be my favorite solo I've ever done. There's something about the shadows that I dig now, just because after Deconstruction, the point of that record is that trying to know, well, basically anything, but to try and figure out the meaning of existence past, you know, the meaning of existence is existing, is futile and arrogant and indicative of youth, I think, where you think that is within your grasp. And, you know, the universe and the nature of reality is so monumentally colossal that the folly of people thinking that they're going to be able to uncover all the shadows is just laughable in a lot of ways. And on that note, I mean, I don't think it's beyond humans or any of us to merge with it. And in that sense, I don't know, I think it's just as good. There's, you know, a massive difference in feeling the need to deconstruct something versus just to merge with it and experience it. So, you know, shadows are important, and this record's full of them. Now, I included this next song on here because Flight, the song that I wrote with Che, was just such a big deal to me and to her. But I wanted to include the demo that I sent to her. So we got together and we bashed out an arrangement. And then I took that arrangement home and I made this. I called it Fight, you know, Fight or Flight. And then I sent her this. And this is what she took apart and sang over. And although don't think I quite like it as much. It's a very personal song to me. Especially the lyrics on this one. I wrote this version of this song right when I was finishing Epicloud. And I was bent out of shape because, you know, I really felt like, as much as I liked Epicloud, I felt like it was a cop-out in some ways. I think by the time it was finished and I had really gone the extra mile in making the production special and the choir and the lyrical content, I was really able to appreciate Epicloud for being an important part of what I've done. But when it was first being finished, I thought, you know what, this is all stuff that has been done. This is all standard structures and silly refrains, and, you know, it's things that people are going to like. And it really took a lot of, you know, you talk about the theme of deconstruction, the theme of Epicloud was getting past that. You know, why are you so against doing something that people are going to like? Pure success or whatever. Compromise or whatever. So, you know, I think I took Epicloud to a point where not only did people like it, but I ended up being very happy with it. But at this stage, when Fight was written, I was really on the fence about it. I was like, what am I doing? You know? So I remember driving around, I forget what was going on, some sort of family drama, I think. But I remember driving around one night and listening to this, and it just was really one of those pieces of music that was hard to listen to because it hit a nerve I couldn't quite define. So what I did was I wanted to show you guys what the original sounded like here. And also you'll notice at the end it goes into this kind of spacey, Zeppelin-ish sort of ending. And I had Randy the string guy added a different part to the end that was really sort of whole tone and much different. Now, you see, a lot of the production from Flight I didn't import into this session because I like it being a lot more intimate. You know, Morgan's drums aren't on here; it's all drum machine. But sometimes, you know, you can't replace that. You know, there's sometimes that just the way things are spoken, the way things were recorded, conjure an atmosphere that you just, you know, you try and recreate and it's not going to work. In fact, on the USB stick, I had done another version of a song from the first Ziltoid record called Traveling Salesman. And I redid it. And I wanted to put it on the USB stick because I thought it would be appropriate to have, you know, 7 years later would be another version of it. But it didn't work. It just wasn't nearly as cool as the crappy demo that I did for the first Ziltoid disc. Oh, here's this different ending that we did. Yeah, this got nixed off of the final as well. But, you know, it's, even though it's a demo, I thought it'd be cool to get the strings on there, so Randy did these. Yeah. See, this section I kind of liked. But the thing I really liked is how it comes out of this section. I wanted that in the final, but it was one or the other. It's like the amount of lead up that this kind of section gives to this payoff here was too much for the record, but this payoff here works great as a result of that lead up right here. See, I really like that, but it also required that drum beat to sort of quietly play through it, and Morgan's drums didn't have the same effect. It's you know, if anything happened on the Casualties recording that was a learning experience for me production wise is how the most subtle things can affect the overall experience. You know, like one little drum thing like that can make or break that part and just make it superfluous. So I think that's why it took so long to mix this beast, is it just nailing down what it needed to be in order to achieve the effect took forever, to be honest. Okay, this next song, okay, this is interesting, I think. It's called Glass World, and it's just this little piece. And this is from a dream. This entire section was from a dream. The whole thing, and the sounds, everything was straight out of a dream. And in the dream, I was stuck on the corner of sort of a country road in a car, and I was waiting to turn left behind another car. And it was on the corner, right by this big bunch of trees. And I was sitting there forever. And I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't thinking about why aren't we moving. It was just, I was waiting for him to move. And then I realized that he was there to keep me from moving, and that the whole environment was covered in this glass dome. And the idea behind the dream was that it's like a 50s utopia that isn't real, and the things that we're given to placate us are often, you don't realize that they're the things that are distracting you and misdirecting you from the reality of it all. And this melody was just the whole dream. So I woke up and mumbled it into my iPhone and recorded it immediately. You know, the lyrics, what is it? Wow. There is no way to get out of here. That's what it was. There is no way to get out of here. A lot of things come to me in dreams. A lot of things come to a lot of people in dreams. You know, I think it's just a talent that you can foster in order to be aware enough in the middle of the night to write it down or to record it. You know, your subconscious is just as real as your conscious. It's just, you know, how you choose to direct those impulses, right? So that was it, and that was why I wanted it just to be a quick fade in and out, because then it's like a dream. It comes in and then it goes away. And again, the theme, if there is one for Casualties 2, ended up being this real dream state. This song, Aquarius. What's this one about? Who knows? Death or something? Probably all are. It's hard to play. This one sucks to play. It's like Flight. It's just bar chords for 5 minutes. It's a song I sent to Che at one point, and sent to Morgan as well, but I didn't get anything back from him from this one. So, you know, that's often what happens when you're presenting people with songs. The ones that resonate with people are the ones that they sing or play on, and that's what they should be singing and playing on. And if it doesn't strike them, then forcing it is just a ridiculous idea. So in situations like that, I'll just finish it myself. Same thing happens with Ziltoids, same thing happens with GTP, same thing happened with Strapping. There's always going to be songs that some people like and other people don't like, or, you know. vice versa. But ultimately, the final call for these pieces of music come down to me, and I think a lot of times it's people may not hear in the demo what it is that you're trying to achieve, but I think to myself, if I gloss it up more so you can hear what it is I'm trying to say, by that point it's just going to be done, and there'll be no need for me to have you do anything on it. And this was one of those scenarios, Started off without any vocals or any mumbled, or just sort of a mumbled vocal. But because it didn't strike any bells, I was just like, okay, let me just do it. And then by the time it was finished, I was like, okay, well, there it is, it's done. Dave Young played on a bunch of this stuff. He always does. I mean, Dave's a good dude. He has been in my world for a decade, and he's a good wingman when it comes to music. He contributes good things, without a big deal about it. And because I'm not a keyboard player, that makes it convenient for me. I'll send him just a batch of songs and be like, Dave, this one I'm thinking could use some mellotron, this one could probably use some harmonica or whatever. And he's a multi-instrumentalist in a way that he just colors them up in nice ways. Mike St. John does the same thing. And that's the thing, is like, for my role in all of this, I definitely have the leadership role, which I'm of two minds about. Sometimes I like it, most of the time I find it trying, but I'll take it. But I was talking to somebody else who's in a similar role to me, another musician that I know who's in a role where he has people on payroll and he has to tell them what to do and all this. And his methods of dealing with people were a lot more blunt than mine. See, my view on it is that it's about the personality of the people. If they can curb some of the amateur things or the childish things, then often I find I can get better things for my own work from people who can't work with other people because they're awkward. They talk too much, or they don't talk enough, or whatever. And I find I gravitate a lot to talented people who maybe haven't had a lot of experience. But it's not because I'm trying to be a hero or anything. I find that the lack of pretense that comes from those people make it a lot easier for me to function. But there's a give and take with that. You definitely find that type of personality, you'll be in the thick of it, and then those things that make them difficult to deal with other people sort of resurface, and you're like, right, I forgot about that. But you have to, it's give and take. You have to, if you want to have a dedicated employee, if you want to look at it that way, or a musician even, sometimes you have to put in the hours and train people to be exactly what you need. And vice versa. The employees train me to be a better person. I think left to my own devices, I could very easily be a dictator or control freak or maniacal about what I want versus what I don't want. But in having to deal with other people, sensitive people, I've had to really learn empathy in terms of this work, and also recognize that I'm wired to think of music in a way that, to me, it's the easiest thing in my life, but there's some other people that find it really difficult. There's people that find the way I function to be very peculiar, and I often find when I'm working with people who are rhythmically minded, drummers or even guitarists or bass player who are rhythmically minded, I have to remind myself that that everybody doesn't think about music in terms of shapes and colors and sounds and things like that. That's kind of how I process it. I don't think about notes. I don't think about scales. I don't think about time. I think about how it makes me feel. You know, talking to the drummer, and he's like, well, what should this part be like? And I'm like, well, it needs to be more blue. And he's looking at me like I'm wearing his sweater. And he's like, no, where's the beat land on? I'm like, I don't know, where I'm nodding my head, just there. But, you know, you can't just play that card. You can't be like, look, I'm an artist, and you have to just follow it, and it's blue, bro. You have to be like, let me think about it. Okay, how do you count it? And he's like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm like, I guess on the 3 is where I mean that. And so, you know, this whole organization that we've put together around primarily my work, be it the music or Ziltoid or art or whatever, is full of people that are teaching each other, you know, and I'm one of those people. We all have roles to play. Like I say, I get the leader role, but that's just a title. The reality of it is when you're out there working together, everybody's, you know, just trying to get by, and their quirks and foibles come out at sea. The song's called Perspective. This was written for Ghost 2 as well. A lot of people, or a fair amount of people at least, have been asking me about this because I'd put up a clip on YouTube several years back showing some Ghost stuff, and this song was among those clips. And from those clips, some people had assumed that this song was going to be, you know, one of the best songs or whatever. And even at that time, I remember thinking it's a cool song, but it's not fitting anywhere. It doesn't serve much of a purpose other than a standalone. And that, even going back to what we were just talking about with the team, if you look at the record as a team, each song has to play a part, and each song has its strengths and weaknesses, but together those strengths and weaknesses hopefully create a singular energy. And I think within the context of Casualties 2, this song Perspective, I think it says something pretty neat. I wrote this same time that Drench and all that stuff was written. This is Mike St. John playing drums. Dave playing keyboards again. We make a pretty good team, I think. And well, I mean, of course we do. You know, any nonchalance or arrogance that you hear in my voice right now, maybe not any, but a lot of it is just to do with the fact that I'm overtired and not being as diligent with my Canadiana uber politeness that I don't know, it's the first thing to go when I get tired is the need to represent those things. It's like my parents, they got older, and when they were younger they were able to be a lot more tolerant to things, but as they get older they have a limited pool of energy to draw from, and first thing to go is their tolerance for, you know, noises or kids or things like that. So in a similar way, that's what happens when I get tired. This crescendo, I think, was supposed to harken back to like Unity from Infinity. You know, I use some similar techniques in terms of scrolling randomly through radio stations and putting the microphone up to it, and it kind of worked. It kind of worked, but it was still not wasn't as effective as I think I would have liked it to be in order to warrant, you know, being on the main disc. all this stuff is such a part of me. I mean, I like to pretend it's not, but this music is just, I don't even think about it. It's not weird, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just this counterpart, this sort of ongoing sonic dialogue to my life, I guess. Good chance that by the time I die, it'll all just be, you know, just that dust in the wind. And I'm cool with that, to be honest. I think that's something I've had to become cool with, is that my reasons for doing music are not anything other than it's a joy and it's a compulsion, and it doesn't serve any purpose beyond that for me personally. And that's even getting back to the pledge drive, why that was such a shock to me, because it strikes me as just insane that people listen to this stuff so many years. So here's the last song. So the song's called Moonshine. Mike St. John on drums again. This is part it goes to. Now, in my mind, when this was being written, I actually wrote this when I was at Walmart. And there's just something just so unendingly horrible about consumerism, just in general. It's like I'm guilty of it, you know, and we're shopping at Walmart and we're getting bulk everything and just plastic coated pieces of plastic and wrapped in plastic with a plastic box on it. It's just, and there was one day I was at a Walmart, some super center that opened up in Vancouver, and I was just like, man, we're just, as a society and as a species, we're not ready for transcendence. We're so far away from it. And I remember thinking, well, what's the end result of that? Do you give up because humans aren't there yet and you're one of them and you're part of the problem? And then I remember thinking to a conversation I had years ago where the thought was, amidst all the war and all the hurt and pain and suffering, which is what this song, if I ever did a video for, would be, just images of suffering and, you know, news, just people going through incredibly hard things, you know. But you have to keep looking at the positive. You have to. Why? Is that some sort of dullard, you know, blind optimism? And no, that's not why I choose to think of it that way. The reason I choose to think of it that way is because human beings represent a missing link, in some sense, between what we are currently and what we can be in the future. And what we can be, I think humans have the potential to be shining and celestial. But it takes the present. It takes us in the present making conscious decisions, from the media that we ingest to the ideas that we entertain, to the things that we buy, to the things we eat, the things we say to each other, the things we think, the poison thoughts that we think. You know, you have to make a decision consciously now to try and not poison your present, because if time is really non-existent, everything we do now affects forever. So, you know, don't give up. It's beautiful, and so is music, and so are you. And I'm really tired, so I'm going to bed, guys. Alright? Lots of love, man and woman. Okay? Moonshine. My name's Devin Townsend, and I hope you guys have a great week. Alright? Love you. Cheers.